Greetings. Now, I like to talk about some more things about the Bible, specifically the laws of Moses. And I may hint at the life of Moses and the Israelites, or the Hebrews at that time, however they were known. I might expound on that as well, but I'm gonna get into the laws of Moses, the first 5 books, the Tanakh, the Torah, how, whatever you want to call it. So here's the thing. In this law, there is a lot of preciseness. There's a lot of preciseness in there was always the push or the encouragement to dwell upon the law and have it in your mind. It's supposed to be like seared in your mind. Every single law, every single detail. And it's a lot, right? Like you have the obvious ones, don't kill, don't bear false witness, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't covet, you have those. But you got so many other ones, like how a farmer in that time was not supposed to glean all of the crops, but leave the corners of the crops for the people that were poor, the people that didn't have a lot. Also, not wearing mixed garments, like whatever you have on has to be 100% cotton, or whatever you have has to be 100% silk or whatever it is. You can't have cotton mixed with silk. You know what I'm saying? Verifying the many laws of cleanliness whenever you got a scratch or a scab. The woman's monthly issue and the woman's cleanliness, whether or not, she had a boy or a girl. You know what I'm saying? And then even a child's cleanliness. Yeah, so there was a lot. And God tells his people, if you do these things, then you are holy to me. I want you to do these things. I don't want the heathen to do these things. Only you can do these things. And if you do these things, not only will you be holy, but the entire world will be yours. If you do these laws, and if you decide to go to war, there is no way that you would perish or fall in this war. Not only do you have to do these laws, but have a confidence and a faith that I will deliver you out of whatever trouble it is concerning a specific war. And if there's any little hint of doubts, if anybody is faint of heart, then I will make sure that your safety and your blessed and your blessedness is compromised. And that got me thinking, because when you look at how these laws were established and how they were practiced and how they were administered and how they had certain people of authority to make sure that the laws were administered and properly delegated amongst, you look at the many times that those people failed. Countless times they have failed. And every time they failed, they be in a more lower state every time they decided to come back to God or try to come back to God. And it was just like, it was a cycle, in and out, all the way to the point which led us to the time that Christ was being born. All the prophets, they talked about all these things. They said, hey, y'all messed up. There were some things that y'all was supposed to do that y'all didn't do. And God is mad. God wants you to change your ways and go back to the law and do what was supposed to happen, so he can maintain and keep that promise that he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He wants to keep you separate and holy to himself. That's what he wants. But if you don't listen, then you will be destroyed. And that's what happened. So also within that, you know, the prophets also, they made mentions that there was going to be someone that was going to come to redeem Israel, specifically in Isaiah, you know, where God's name is Emmanuel, and it says that God will be with us, you know, or it talks about, you know, you know, thou Bethlehem are not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor which shall rule my people Israel. So all these things culminated and led up to the birth of the Messiah, the anointed Savior. So Christ came, he did what he was supposed to do, and then he died. He died on the account of the fact that none of his people followed the laws even in that time. It doesn't matter if they was a high priest. It doesn't matter if they was a rich man or a poor man. You know, they was just all jacked up. There were some good ones, like the, you know, the father of John the Baptist, Zechariah. You know, there were some good ones, but even still, you know, it was still all jacked up for the most part. And I think the reason why is because there was a great burden that was put on the people of God. This great burden, and even still, like, with the burden that was taken upon them, out of all of these people, God chose the most hard-headed people ever. Backstabbing, or, you know, backsliding. Like, he chose the most hard-headed people ever to give these laws to. And I don't know if it was supposed to have been like a humbling experience for thousands of years since the inception of the nation to the decline of it. I don't know, but when you look at the law, and then when you look at the people that he gave these laws to, it was a hard thing. And it makes you think, why did Moses tell them to choose this day life or death? Because the laws are life, and not listening to the laws is death. And obviously there was a perpetual death of that nation. So yeah, the most hard-headed type of people. And you had a law that was very descriptive and in detail, and I believe even sometimes a weightier type of matter when it came to just simply living, because everything they did was for God. You know, it wasn't like, hey, you know, I'm this person from this tribe, and I want to be a great farmer and shepherd, and I want to be, you know, somebody that will start some technological advancement. No, it wasn't that at all. It was, you are mine. You live for me. Everything you do is for me. Granted, there may be, you know, some form of individuality, but at the end of the day, if you're not practicing these laws, then what do I, you know, what do I have to do with you if you're not doing what I say? So the most hard-headed people gave the most strenuous laws to, and that, you know, the majority of the laws, everything that was supposed to have been seared and sealed in their minds was about the law. All of these things. And when you look at it, when you put it all together, for the type of people that God chose, it was impossible. It was impossible for them to really be like, yeah, I can do this. My children can do this. We can do this. You know, like the generations that come after us for thousands of millennia, like we can all do this all day, every day. It don't matter. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case where, you know, It was perpetual. So then we got to think, because there was some remarks in there where God said that if I gave this to any other nation, they would have listened. If I gave this to any other nation that was before you, they would have listened. And then you got to think about it, because it's like, if God is saying that if I would have gave this to any other nation, they would have listened. Well, let's think about the setting. Before these people came out of Egypt, what were the nations doing? They had all these different gods, and they worshiped them, and they made idols, and they sacrificed to them, and they said, you know, this is the God of the trees, and this is the God of the lightning, and this is the God of the rain, and so forth and so on. So, you know, because these wonders were already happening, the great mysteries of the earth itself and what they saw, the sun, the moon, the stars, because of these great mysteries, these people already saw the wonders and the works of the one creator, but they, you know, they delineated it into it being different gods. So I can understand why God would say, if I would have gave this to any other nation, they would have listened. And the reason why is because they already believed that there was something greater than them because of all the various things that they saw. Their only biggest mishap, number one, is that they weren't chosen. But then number two is that, you know, they already created a God that they believed was responsible for the lightning, that was responsible for sex, or that was responsible for war. You know what I'm saying? Like, they already had that established. So of course any other nation would have listened. And, you know, granted, if that, you know, if the God of Israel would have spoken to them, then that would have been the law of the land perpetually. I think what is happening in this law, and, you know, and this is not the skeptical side of what I'm saying. This is more of the logical approach to really looking at it. So I think that when it comes to, you know, when it comes to bearing the responsibility of upholding and obtaining this law, it was essentially designed for someone to fail. But when you think about it, the only people that would have been designed to fail was the most hard-headed people. Like he said, anybody else would have listened. So then you got to really question, well, not question, but you have to look at how this would count as a divine type of wisdom. Why would a law that is like a law that could be essentially universal for anybody to practice, why would that law be given to the people that would not adhere 100% and do it, versus giving it to a nation that already believed that there was something greater than them, and all they had to do was just listen to the voice of God when, you know, they were in the wilderness, and that would have been it perpetually. And obviously, you know, it goes back to the question of, okay, this was the promise of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because out of Jacob shall thy seed be called, right? And that's why, you know what I'm saying, that's why, you know, God gave it to them, because he had to be a man of his word. You know what I'm saying? Now, even though any other nation would have listened, I think the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is that there was something deeper within that law. There was something that was supposed to have been perceived within the laws, that we were supposed to see something that was beyond that. Like, because if you could imagine, if you're a Levite priest and you're the priest or the chief priest or the high priest of that city, and every day you got people coming to you because of sins or uncleanliness or, you know, so forth and so on, and you got to kill all these animals every day, burn them at the altar or whatnot, you know what I'm saying, let the blood drain out, like all that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I would imagine it gets to a point where you're like, man, you know, like we keep messing up, you know? I mean, you can't control, like the birth of a child, but I mean, even still, like, just with everything that happens, you got this priest that, they look at it every day, and it's like, dog, like, and not only that, but, because he did say that they were going to be like the sands of the sea. So if that's the case, these priests, they have a job that they are indebted to do indefinitely, day in and day out. So looking at the whole breadth, the depth of it, the responsibility of the law, not only was it administered to the people, but it was given to these priests as a perpetual calling, a perpetual job. Like, it essentially was designed for these people to fail. They had to have failed. They were supposed to fail. Now, again, and this is just me brainstorming, it's like, man, that's why I give them the laws in the first place. If God in God's divine wisdom knew that the hard-headed people that he chosen, that he created, that he loved, and he swore allegiance to be their God, why give them a law that was so strenuous, knowing that they would eventually one day not practice that law, and that they would fail in? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, I don't know, it's I marvel at that. So Christ had to come. Christ had to have been born based off of the prophecies, and he emerges, and he was the Lamb without blemish. He did not violate the laws in any kind of way. But then you have to look at how he did it, and how he referenced what he did by the scriptures. Like, I believe that when you look at Abraham, and this was before the laws was even set. I mean, even still, there was some hints of information that, Abraham did sacrifice, and, he did things unto God for a specific reason. So, that's already established. But when you look at Abraham and how God revealed himself to Abraham when he said, I got to go destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, granted, this is after Abraham already saved his nephew, right? He saved his nephew from the war of the great kings, right? Back in those days. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Lot, he was chilling. Lot was good. Lot had his wife and his daughters, and he was trying to be a just man during those times. But God said to God said to Abraham, he said, I got to go destroy this city, man. Now, we've always been told that we cannot question God, or we're not supposed to question God, like, why did this happen, so forth and so on. Like, we're not supposed to do that, I guess, because it says in Romans, oh man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing that formed of him say, why hast thou made me thus, right? So we're not supposed to question God, but in that interaction between him and Abraham asks God, he says, will the Lord destroy all these inhabitants, even if there's righteous people in there? Because obviously Abraham knew that Lot was righteous, and Lot tried to do what he could to be a just man. But herein lies the question of authority. Abraham wasn't like, all right, God, do what you got to do. But I believe that Abraham allowed God to reconsider, because then God says, well, you know what? Yeah, if it's X amount of righteous people in that city, I won't destroy it. came, I mean, because at the end of the day, God still wanted to do what he wanted to do. Even though he told Abraham, if there's 50 righteous within the city, I'm not going to destroy it. But what did God do? God told the righteous to get out of the city because I'm still going to destroy it. Right? I'm still going to do what I need to do. Now, I don't know if Lot ever linked back up with Abraham after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, but we get the picture. Even though God told Abraham these things, God still did what he wanted to do. But then again, God was given that moment of reconsideration where he was like, damn, like, I know that I have to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And maybe that was a test. Maybe God wanted to see what Abraham was going to do, because God knew that Abraham knew that Lot was in there. So maybe God wanted to see if, Abraham would extend that type of consideration about his nephew and have him saved, which he did. Right? So now, with everything, with everything that I'm thinking about, the blessings of the laws for the Israelites that they were supposed to practice, right? They could have anything, any nation. If you read the laws, it says that all the nations were supposed to be an inheritance, that they were supposed to be slaves, and that the Israelites can do to them whatever they saw fit. Even if they went to war, the plunders, the spoils that go to the victors, which was supposed to have been the Israelites had they practiced the laws and had 100% confidence and faith that God will deliver them, is that the plunders were, the children and the women and whatever else that they saw fit. Now, given that obviously war is a type of destruction between two sides, and given that there was a side that was victorious, in some kind of way, you would consider this to be like God's earthly judgment or destruction on that city, right? But even in that, if you look at, if there was a city that God wanted destroyed and he sent the Israelites out, because that's what they did with Joshua, right? They did all these things with Joshua. They cleaned out the Canaanites. Now, in the beginning, before they went in there, it was said that God sent out like deadly wasps and different critters to drive them out, which it did drive out a considerable number of inhabitants. But when it came time for war, the Israelites was ready. They went to war with these nations, with Joshua, and the spoils of war went to them because they won, because they had God on their side.
Sudden slowdown within the next 5 miles. Please use caution.
Now, with that into consideration, we also have to consider, like I said, going back to Abraham's plea to God about preserving the righteous. Now, let's say that God says, hey, we need to destroy, Jericho or whatever. And Joshua was like, well, the Lord destroy Jericho if there's 50 righteous in there. And it just counts down to, who's righteous and who's not. Just going back to that same conversation with Abraham. I think that's the one thing that we are to consider when it comes to like the laws, because if these people were supposed to perpetually follow these laws and receive these blessings, but then also be the upper hand against these other nations, and these other nations are to have been considered as inheritance or property, then I think the mindset of Abraham, even though Abraham knew that everything was going to be given to him and his seeds, even after all that, he still considered that, hey, there's still good people out there, even though they may not be of my lineage, even though they may not be of these promises that God is promising, because I know that Lot was not. Let me extend an olive branch. Let me extend that type of grace and be like, Lord, I know that you are God, and I know that you've given these promises. I'm faithful, and I'm giving, I trust you with everything. But if you destroy that city, can you just please consider the righteous, right? So I think if somebody was supposed to be a follower of these laws, then they should have had that consideration within everything. Because if you think about it, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, right? Abraham didn't do none of that. He didn't go out and steal and kill. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't do none of that. You know, he wasn't, I mean, well, he did kill, but it was only because he had to defend and protect people and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you know, the things that Abraham did, you know, like, it was, I don't know, it was like a gracious side of Abraham that God considered. You know what I'm saying? So we really have to think about that in a way, because it's like, even though God said that, you know, we're supposed to choose life and death when it comes to these laws, and if we follow these laws, we choose life. How are we choosing life if we keep violating these laws and keep having to sacrifice? Something has to die all the time for all the sins that we did. And that's, you know, and that's what the priest, you know, that's what it culminates into, is them indefinitely having that priesthood to keep sacrificing these animals. You know what I'm saying? Thou shalt not kill. It can't just be, you know what I'm saying, like, don't kill people. Like, I mean, and granted, you know, we do got to eat, you know what I'm saying, but that's in order for us to survive. But even still, it's like, you know, if you violate my laws, then something has to die. So going back to Abraham and that grace, you know, I really think that in order for those people to have been considered to be under the law as the Jews or the Israelites as they were perceived to be, and they really should have considered the gracious approach that Abraham took when he considered Sodom and Gomorrah. And there's so many other things, I'm pretty sure, that we can make reference of and mention to. When you look at Jacob and how, when, you know, Rebecca essentially told Jacob to do these things, deceive your father so you can receive these blessings. But that was all in God's will, because even God told Rebecca that, you know, I'm choosing Jacob, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Now, the thing is this, is that it was revealed, it was made known that Jacob stole the blessing of Esau. And mind you, Esau did sell his birthright to Jacob. So Esau, he necessarily didn't care about the birthright. So he sold it to Jacob, right? Now, granted, you got all these things about, you know, how, you know, that deception took place or whatnot. Esau found out. Esau wanted to kill Jacob. And here it is, years and years and years and years down the line, when Jacob is about to meet his brother Esau, and, you know, they said, behold, Esau is coming to meet you with a great number of people. Jacob is thinking, oh my God, it's about to be a war. This dude about to kill me. And Jacob sent his people out in a certain order, and he wanted to make it appear as if he had more people. And if you ever read the book of Jasher, it actually talks about how there were angels that were sent to give the image that Jacob had more people than Esau when Esau came out to meet his brother. And Esau was actually humbled at the fact that he saw this image, this, you know, this great multitude of people. He was humbled, and that's what caused him to not be, you know, vicious against his brother. You know, that's in Jasher. I don't know, but get back to the main point. Jacob wasn't like, you know, I'm about to go to war with this dude, with my brother. I'm about, you know, I'm about to kill this cat. Like, it wasn't nothing like that at all. You know, he prayed to God, and he wrestled with an angel, and he met his brother, and they hugged. You know what I'm saying? And they cried, and, you know, they was cool. You know what I'm saying? Even though God told Jacob that, yes, you're going to be a great nation, and, you know, your children will, you know, I'm going to choose them because they're, you know, they're the chosen ones. And, you know, Jacob, he knew all of this before he met his brother, but he didn't tempt God. He didn't say, well, God, if you with me, let me destroy my brother. No, there was a gracious side to Jacob, just like it was with Abraham. You know what I'm saying? So even though these laws were administered, and there was the blessings, and, you know, the perpetual, you know, covenant that, you know, between God and his people, like, even though all these things happened, and the benefits that came with being God's people, that essentially the earth was theirs. So even though all this thing, even though this was all into consideration, there was never the gracious side of it. It was black or white, life and death. You know what I'm saying? So then we got to look at, what did Christ do? How did Christ do it? And that's what we got to look at. But at the end of the day, it was never supposed to work out. That law was never supposed to work out. It was never supposed to work out. And you know, that's what I really gotta look at that. I really gotta consider that, because you know, the origins of Moses and the Israelites in Egypt, you know, it's very obscure. This is what I want people to consider. The Old Testament and the New Testament, they weren't put together until approximately 400 years after, I repeat, after the death of Christ. That is what I want people to consider. Because leading up to that, there were some obscurities of ancient Egyptian texts and other Canaanite texts that were considered, that I believe encouraged the notion of Moses and his origin story. Because there was also ancient Mesopotamian stories of a child that was drawn from the water, from a reed basket. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things we gotta consider, man. We gotta consider these things. Because again, like the law was designed at a certain point, but then the people didn't listen, so the law was not the authority of the entire world anymore. It was never designed to work, especially for people that was not going to listen. There's more I'm going to talk about. I just have to consider more things.